Everyone keeps telling me that AI will make me better at my job, but why do I find it so annoying?
Kayla, sounds like you just don't know how to use the technology, actually.
That might be true.
But I will give you this. The discourse around AI, very annoying. So we'll talk about that. But then I think we need to debate how much you should be using AI at work.
Let's get into it. So, Kyle, I know why I think AI is so annoying.
You're an AI hater.
I am an AI hater, but why do you think AI is annoying?
Okay, that's a leading question. You're leading the witness. Objection. So I personally like the technology, but it is clear that there is a level of discourse around AI that is so annoying.
Yes.
No matter, hate the technology, love the technology, everywhere you turn,
There's discourse.
the letters AI appear. Your toaster is like saying it's using AI technology. Like, what's going on here? What I think is the problem is it's all about the money. Follow the money. There has been an insane level of funding of AI. So according to PitchBook, first quarter of 2025 saw $91.5 billion in venture capital activity spread across spread across 3,990 deals. Now, 71% of that total deal value, that 91.5 billion, went to AI technologies, AI-based companies. And if you exclude OpenAI, which raised $40 billion itself, still 48, so about 50% went to AI technologies. So you have the world's most powerful VC funds betting on this technology. You have thousands and thousands of companies betting on this technology, and you have so much money flowing through this ecosystem that people are marketing AI everywhere you turn. So it just like, it is the water we're swimming in now. So I think the first time you hear it, you're like, oh, this is cool. But every landing page you go to saying AI over and over again, every CEO saying AI over and over again, eventually you're just like, this is so annoying. I want to hear about anything else. That's what I think the problem is. But the discourse is disguising or hiding, I think, the actual use case of this technology and causing a lot of people to just get fed up and not actually explore it further.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also do think that there's this element of like every single technology has this like hype wave, hype cycle or whatever. It's the same thing as like when blockchain was the big thing and every single thing. It's like, what was it, like Long Island Lemonade or whatever changed their name to Long Island Blockchain and their valuation like quadrupled overnight. It's like, okay, people are just like saying a thing is a thing when it's not a thing.
It's like, oh, this is actually a Web3 podcast. And everyone's like, oh my God, that's amazing.
Like, well, we're so valuable all of a sudden. Yeah. It just doesn't. It's so, this is a classic thing. But
it's marketing. The marketing is annoying.
The marketing is annoying, but I also think there's this element beyond like individual companies adopting or saying they're adopting AI. It's like there's such a weird like frenzy around the technology that I think makes people crazy. Like the potential of the technology, yes, AI, artificial intelligence, for those of you who I guess have never heard a word before.
No. If you just learned that AI stood for artificial intelligence, email us, per my last email at Morning Brew. I need to speak to you. I'm jealous of your life, legitimately.
So artificial intelligence is like, there's some cool things, right? It's iterating on itself and there's some interesting potential there. Generative AI, I think, is kind of what we're going to be talking about the most. This is like the OpenAIs, the ChatGPTs, the Claudes, the Geminis, all that. I think there's some interesting stuff there. The tech is enticing. But when people go online and they're like, this is going to cause the end of the world as you know it, and or this is the best thing to ever happen in the world.
Or weird stuff like, I replaced my wife with AI, and here's why you should too. And you're like, brother, seek help.
No, literally.
Find God.
And so it's like all of this stuff is crazy. And it makes, I think there's two reactions to this, right? The reaction number one is, oh my gosh, AI is so important. And if I don't adopt it right now, I'm going to live in a ditch for the rest of my days.
A robot's going to come in, punch me in the face, take my job. Like, I need to use this all the time, everywhere.
Exactly. And if anyone, like, I'm going to evangelize AI. If you're not using AI, you're going to die tomorrow, you know? And like, I think that's not healthy.
Yeah.
The second reaction is everyone keeps telling me that this is like a huge thing. I actually hate it. F you, I'm not going to touch it, which have been in that camp.
And I think that camp, it's because of the discourse. It's like admittedly, it was kind of like me with crypto. I was like, I found the discourse so annoying that I would just never use it because it felt like I was like letting them get a W for being annoying. And I think it's the same thing with AI, where it's like, even if you're convinced on a technological level that this is revolutionary, there are some people who are so mad about the discourse and so annoyed by the discourse and the particular people they think is like pushing this on people that they're not going to give them a W. And I understand it. I don't agree with it, but I understand that perspective. It's just like, I'm not going to use it because I hate this whole thing.
Yes, I think I agree with you for the most part. I think there are some like legitimate critiques
100%
of AI as a technology, but I think like we're not having good faith arguments about the technology because there's this like layer of like bullshit on top of it that like you have to literally like pickaxe your way through before you can actually have a conversation about the benefits and the cons of AI technology. And so I think it's like, why am I swimming through mud? Like trying, like dodging, like tech bros being
and
like
tweets
and it's just like just to have a legitimate conversation about the genuine pros and cons of AI. And so hopefully we're able to strip that away and we will have a conversation.
So we are filling the gap in the market. We are going to have a legitimate conversation about AI. There's one other thing before, because I know you've been experimenting with it. I'm actually very excited to hear your take. There's one level that I think is also annoying people. And I would say it's like the quote unquote like enshittification of a product, which is like apparently
trademark that.
No, it's not. I stole it from online. It's like an online lingo.
Is it really?
Yeah. Where basically people feel like the promise of the technology is so alluring that companies are very fast to adopt. In fact, McKinsey had a report, 92% of companies plan to make more investments in AI. Only 1% of those companies say it's at a mature stage for deployment. So it's like, oh, there is so much promise, and I agree, I think there is, that they rush to use it and deploy it, and then it actually degrades the user experience. And like the cost savings and the efficiency gains are like too appealing to like, it's like the ring in Lord of the Rings. It's like, but I just want to wear it. I got to have it. That I think people are worried that it's going to like degrade their favorite apps. Duolingo just made this big announcement. We're going to be an AI first company. And I actually like, for the most part, think that the email that the CEO sent, I agree with most of it. The comments are just butchering it. Like the top upvoted one on LinkedIn is like, oh, this is going to like make the product shittier. And so I think that's a fear where there's this level of promise, like AI can do 90% as good of a job as a human in like 1 second. And then people are like, oh, so then it'll get to 100% in like right after that. But sometimes it doesn't. It just gets to 90%. It does it faster, but it made the product worse. I think that's another maybe legitimate concern.
Yeah, I agree. And I have a ton of concerns.
Okay, so set the scene here, because you are not a massive AI user.
No, I'm not. In fact, I'm an AI hater.
You're an AI hater.
I've been holding the line for a year.
Just so we could do this episode.
No, I genuinely have not seen the allure. I haven't understood the appeal. In fact, like my husband and I get into legitimate arguments about my AI use because he's like all like bought in.
You know, AI is going to lead to divorce. It's like, watch out, families.
Yeah, as soon as he like starts using it to like have conversations with me, that's when we know we're in trouble. But as of right now, he's like actually using it like I think pretty well. Like I think it's actually like unlocked some serious like scale in his work. Which is very cool. And so yes, I don't want to be a like technology Luddite, but also one of the reasons why I've been experimenting with this over the past few weeks is because I am to my core a hater. And I think
you are.
I am.
You're a great hater though.
I'm a good hater. I hate when it's deserved. Okay? And that's across the board. Like I don't hate if it's just like I'm in a bad mood. Well, you know. But I need facts, right? I need proof in order to be the best hater that I possibly can be. And so I decided to give a good faith effort and try a little bit of AI, experiment with a few use cases, see what's up.
So proud, bestie.
So that I could effectively hate. And I think I got there.
Okay, I want to hear the results of said good faith attempts.
Okay, so here's where it helped. And I tried it in a variety of use cases, and there are 3 places where I actually think that it was beneficial.
Okay.
Number one, when I am completely out of my depth, when I have not even an inkling of where to start on something, that is actually helpful. So I talked to Claude when I was looking for booking an event space. And I was like, I have no idea. Like, I'm booking an event space for 2 separate events. And I'm like, comedy, I don't know where that's supposed to be held. Like,
what is a joke, Claude? Tell me.
And so I was like, I'm looking to book this in 3 weeks and it's a tight timeline. I'm like really overwhelmed. Besides like going onto Google Maps and typing comedy club and like calling every single one, like what are the best places? So I did ask Claude to like give me a list, or maybe it was ChatGPT, whatever. Give me a list of bars in the New York area, like in Manhattan, typically, ideally lower than Midtown, that have availabilities for 150 to 300 people. And it did give me a strong list. And I just went through that list and I emailed and I found one.
Right.
And so that was helpful. And that probably saved me some time. And I was spinning my wheels less.
Right. And I just want to say there, I think your point about saying you're not an expert at all in this.
Yep.
And what I'm hearing is that basically AI, even if it's not perfect, and it gave you the 100% best results, or like everything it listed was still open, or the phone numbers were correct, it gets you 80% of the way there when you were at 0. So to me, like, if you're not an expert, it kind of, you have like this like flawed, but you have an expert in your pocket that you can deploy at any time to at least make you reasonable and give you a place to start. And I think that's very powerful.
Yeah. And I think for me, one of my problems, just like as a person, is that if I don't know where to start, that first step becomes extremely, extremely challenging for me. And so that was helpful in easing the, like, that first step was less than like a 6-foot jump and more of like a half step.
The friction to get started, where to start looking, it lowers that.
And that, again, is because I didn't know where to start and I was feeling very overwhelmed. The second, non-work stuff. So my landlord at my old house, my old apartment, had basically stopped responding to my emails and wasn't returning my security deposit. And I was like, what are even my rights here? So TLDR, I used Claude to figure out that not only were they super late on giving me my security deposit, but they owed me interest because I'd lived there for 4 years.
Oh, boom.
So
pays for itself.
It was great. And then I didn't pay for it. It was free. I'm not paying for AI right now. And then wrote a letter. Basically. So I sent this email. I had to like go through obviously like line by line and update things to make sure everything was accurate, but gave me the bones of a letter that I sent to all these people that worked at my old building. And within 15 minutes, they were like, we've sent it to you.
Right.
So it was, that was great. And that would have taken me like an evening of like stressing, trying to understand what are the laws here? Like, do I have a right? Can I send a strongly worded email? Like, are they going to get mad at me?
Yeah. And then you would have to like type the email.
Exactly.
It saved you a lot of time.
It saved me a lot of time, and I felt a lot better experimenting in my personal life than I did at work.
Yeah.
We can kind of get into that a little bit.
I want to make one comment here as well. So for this email you sent that was legalese or lawyerly, I mean, I feel like 2 things happened. One, you would have had to consult with like an actual lawyer or do a ton of research to even know what your rights were. Now you can use this tool and instantly. The second thing is, I feel like this is an example of like, I would say like, quote unquote, moving up the food chain or like the value chain. So before AI, you would have had to have written that letter yourself or paid someone to do it. But let's say you're not going to pay. You have to write it yourself. Now what you're doing is you said, you're editing. So like the writing is done. It doesn't mean, okay, writing's done. I don't need to check it. It's perfect. AI never makes a mistake. No one's saying that. But instead of spending 3 hours writing, you spent 30 minutes editing, 2.5 hours saved. Like that to me is so powerful. And in my pushback on some critiques of AI is people saying, well, it's wrong sometimes. Yeah, of course. Like I'm not saying never check it. I'm just saying you can now focus your time on checking it as opposed to writing the whole damn thing yourself.
Yeah. And I have some, well, I think that's one of my biggest like complaints would there have been a benefit if I had written it? You know, like if I had spent 3 hours like doing my research, would I then become like a resource for other people? Would I then know my rights the next time? You know, like I think there's a little bit there, but we're still in the good faith part. We're still in the good faith part.
All right, good. Okay. Go to the next one.
My final one is in a pinch. So 10 minutes before a meeting, I'm like, oh shoot, I just realized like I had to come prepared with a few questions. I genuinely don't know, like I don't have the time right now to do the research. I'm just gonna pop this into a like generative AI model and ask like, what are the 10 questions you would ask here? And then like, oh, let's like dive into each of those. I really like this question. Can you give me 3 more like it?
Yep.
And then within 7 minutes, I was like, okay, I have my few questions that I need to ask in this meeting. And I felt prepared, even though I didn't have the time beforehand to actually prepare, which would have taken me 30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So that was very helpful, but those all feel like stopgappy type things, like where I had difficulties with it.
Well, can I say one thing about the last one?
Yeah.
Is I think that is a great use case as well. And again, the call out is, I think if you start from zero, like if you didn't know the scaffolding around the meeting, if you hadn't been working at Morning Brew for years, if you didn't understand media and consumer revenue, like just talking to ChatGPT or Claude, getting a list of questions and asking them, anytime someone asked you a question back, you'd have no idea what you're talking about because you don't have the actual like knowledge that surrounds your questions to the AI. So that isn't what anyone, like what is powerful is like, okay, I need to come up with questions, but I have all this other knowledge around it. And it's just like this conversational partner where I think you can like tease out your own ideas better. And so I think we often talk about AI as a vacuum, or it's the only source of information you're bringing to a meeting, or it's the only tool you're using. And again, I don't think that's what the actual use case is. It's supplemental or complementary or augmentative to other forms of knowledge you have. And that's what I think makes it so powerful.
And we'll be right back after this. Okay, back to the show. Yes, but if you are coming up in the workplace and using AI for everything, like, do you have that? Like, you don't have that knowledge.
But then you're dumb. Like, then, yeah, then you're dumb and you're not going to, like, make an impact. So, yes, I think if you're only using AI to learn everything and you're not double checking and you're not curious about the world and you're not going to talk to real people outside of a computer screen, like, of course you're going to be less impactful. But to me, it would be like, well, if you abuse TikTok every day and that's all you watch, like, is it going to atrophy your brain? Probably. Should we like ban cell phones because of that? Like, no, there's an appropriate use case of technology that is augmentative and powerful. And then there's I don't need to do anything else and I'm just going to rely on this. And that's a huge weakness because sometimes it does make mistakes.
Yeah, and I don't think that I'm advocating for banning AI because I think that it does atrophy your brain. But like, you know, I think that when you give these technologies broad access and people are using them broadly, it just deteriorates like society a little bit. I
think, Kaila, if we went back, I guarantee to like the 1890s or whenever like fax machines came out.
You think fax machines came out in the 1890s?
That's what AI told me. No, I'm kidding. In the 1950s, I don't know, whenever fax machines existed. I guarantee the same exact arguments were happening, that like this new technology is ruining children's brains. You can go back to like Socrates when they started writing things down in books. They were like, no one's going to remember anything now because we're writing in book. Like this is a common fear of every new technology. The kids are using it too much. It's going to atrophy their brains. Society is decaying. We'll look at every single time we've said this. Society has like generally gotten better, I think. So I just don't buy it. I don't buy the argument.
Okay, so now let's go into the concerns because I think this is the first one, right? Which is brain atrophying. I literally wrote that. If I'm outsourcing thinking, why think? So, you know.
But is Google search outsourcing thinking?
No, but Google search isn't as iterative. It's not as complex. It's not as complete.
I think there's a way to say that. Yeah, I hear you. Like again, if you are like gonna go have a dinner with a friend and you're like, I'm just going to ask ChatGPT what to ask, and I'm going to do no further research, and I'm only going to ask those questions. Like, yeah, okay, you've outsourced your entire thinking to the machine. Is anyone actually doing that? To me, when I use AI, it's like, it's to your first example, it's opening the door to like things I wasn't thinking about. It's opening these rabbit holes that you get to explore and go deeper on. And I think if you are a curious person, you can use AI to unlock that curiosity and do really cool things and learn more. And that to me is really, really fun. If you're not a curious person, I can't help you. Like, yeah, if you're using the tool like that, like sorry, but like AI was the problem. I don't think AI was the problem. I think you're just not curious.
Yeah, but I think if you're trained to use something instead of like the friction of pushing through something. This is an example that I've talked about in the past. If I'm using AI to write an email or write a report, I'm not actually writing that email or writing that report. I'm not actually learning the things that are inside of that. So
correct.
That's not good. Like if somebody comes to me and asks me a single clarifying question, chances are if I'm not double checking every fact and going into and editing everything, then I might not know anything that's in the report, even though I wrote it.
Right. And I totally agree. So like, don't do that.
Yeah.
But to say that AI is the reason for that, it's like, you just didn't do your homework. Like you didn't do your research. So like, if you're only relying on AI, I agree. That's a major problem. I just don't see how that's the technology's fault.
So maybe what I need from you is what I think would be helpful is like an example, because how I'm thinking about the uses of AI and how I did try to use it was like to be a thought partner, a thought starter. But I couldn't find uses beyond, like, how are you using it in a way that's additive and not replacing your own thinking?
I mean, well, I'll take an example from this podcast. We interviewed Dr. Laurie Santos.
That's coming out next week.
And it's incredible. And I was like, okay, like I know a little bit about Dr. Laurie. Normally my research would be, I would go into Google, I would type like Dr. Laurie Santos, I'd read her Wikipedia page.
Which is what I did, yeah. I mean, not Wikipedia, but
still do that. This was like, okay, like give me like 10, you prompt it right, which I think is like also, we could do a whole episode on that, but that would be the most boring episode ever. But prompt engineering, like, okay, here's what you are. You're like an expert podcast, like producer. You need to come up with some questions around this guest. This is the show's audience, and this is what I'm most interested in. And then this is the makeup of the audience, and give me like 10 non-obvious questions to ask the guest. And you can turn on extended thinking. You can turn on web search, so it's connected to the internet. It like does this thing where it thinks a little longer and like almost checks itself. So you tend to get better results. It gave me 10 really, really good questions. Now, if I just stopped there and then it was like, my prep is done, I totally agree. Like, no, it's not. Like, are these real? Did you check if they're like legitimate?
Yeah.
Did you interrogate the questions yourself? Did you connect it to like personal anecdotes you've had in your life that are going to give the questions an element of flavor and texture that people really like? Like, if you didn't do that, then yeah, you're not just, it's like, you're not doing your job then. But to me, like the friction of getting to a list of thought starters to engage with further, that would have taken me more time. It saved me a lot of time, and it allowed me to really think about like, what am I going to bring to this conversation?
Right.
What's my reaction to this? And I think ultimately makes for better, more interesting questions and conversation. So that's one example where it saved a lot of time. I think on the other side that I've seen it like, at Morning Brew, is we do a ton of writing. Obviously, we're like a big newsletter company, and we're writing about a lot of things in our newsletters. And for an individual to read every single newsletter and like understand every single brand mentioned and the general sentiment around that brand, that's a ton of work. Well, it's all text-based, and AI is like pretty good at just analyzing large swaths of text, pulling out the brands that are mentioned, talking about the sentiment, and then it kind of arms our team just in general with like, what brands are we talking about? Was there a brand that we wrote like a really great story about that might actually want to explore some more paid opportunities with us? Like, okay, now we can do that. So that's developed. Now you can argue like, what is AI and what's automation and what could we have done 10 years ago? And we're just focusing on it now because of AI, and that's totally fair. But those are two, I think, pretty good use cases. The third, which is from like a journalism perspective that I think is really cool, ProPublica has been using AI to comb through massively large data sets, like government data sets that have so much data that a human, it would take like thousands of years to literally go through all of that. And having an AI be able to dissect these large databases and pull out some interesting insights and then use that to then go do more effective journalism, interrogate it more, talk to people, and write these really compelling, impactful stories, like, that's really cool. And I don't see the problem with using AI to do these things faster. that a human doesn't really have an edge in. What a human has an edge in is like the storytelling and being really thoughtful about connecting these dots in the final product. So those are 3 examples that come to mind.
Yeah, I actually agree with all of those. I think the important thing that I'm pulling out from this is AI, using AI is not the end. It's like the beginning. In almost every instance that you've just mentioned, it's the beginning of a much deeper conversation. So it's instead of being like, I'm going to use AI to write this email, it's like, I'm going to use AI to figure out what my strategy on cold calling people should be. And like the most annoying thing that has that makes me even more anti-AI is when I get these bullshit emails or cold DMs or whatever that are like, hey, Kaila, saw you spoke Portuguese. Like, my favorite word is hola, because, and I'm like, dude, like, what? Like, clearly you're just like pulling a little fact out of my LinkedIn and like automating some weird, really unsettling, like.
Yeah, very odd.
It made me open the email because it was like, the email was like Portuguese fluency and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, wait, what? So it's so weird, but it like made me like, I'm never responding to that email.
Yeah.
You know, because it felt very unsettling. But like, if you wanted to use it as the beginning of, okay, I'm really struggling with getting, you know, open rates higher. Give me 15 hooks for this person. I understand that. And you use your taste to choose a good one. Yeah. But it has to be the beginning, not the end.
I totally agree, wholeheartedly. I think that's a great framing, is beginning and not end, or it's part of the process, but it's not like the entire process. Human in the loop. You've heard all of these terms, and I generally agree with them. Again, my not fear, because everyone's entitled to their own like viewpoint on this, but I do think that there is a level of annoyance with AI that we talked about that people aren't even exploring. And like you said at the beginning, you're an AI hater, but then you rattle off 3 like pretty good use cases you've seen in your own work that helped helped you get money from a landlord. That's like boss level 100. That never happens.
That was great.
So the other thing I want to say, I pulled this Paul Krugman. Okay, Nobel Prize in economics in 1998 said, and I quote, "The growth of the internet will slow drastically. By 2005, it will be clear that the internet's impact on the economy will be no greater than the fax machine."
Yeah, I remember this.
That is a Nobel Prize winning economist saying this newfangled technology is all hype, and when the dust settles, we will discover that it actually didn't do anything. I'm not saying this will be the same for AI, but we say this about every new technology. I think what will be when AI will be less annoying is when it's not viewed as like the thing that's front and center in marketing. It's just baked into the products that we use in a way that still is controlled and has humans in the loop. But I just think that quote is good to keep in mind. Like, yes, there are hype cycles, but sometimes they're worthy hype cycles. And the technology actually does lead to profound impacts, and I would say positive for society.
Yeah, and I'm not arguing that like AI is not going to be impactful. I'm arguing that people are using it in a way that is annoying to me personally.
Yes.
But so right now, what I want to do is a speed round of concerns about AI.
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
I say a concern, and you say yes or no. Okay.
So that's all I'm allowed to say.
No, I mean, you can give your context. Okay, environmental impacts of AI.
That's a concern.
So by 2026, data center energy usage, data centers are what are used to train and like run AI models.
Yeah.
It's going to be the 5th global like entity using energy right after Japan. So that's next year. Like, so data center usage, there's water that needs to cool this shit. There's a bunch of smarter people than me are worried about this. And saying please and thank you to AI has apparently caused tens of millions of dollars of computing power per Sam Altman, which means that you being nice to your AI is killing the planet.
Next time someone say manners are important, you say them they're actually killing the planet.
That's what I'll say.
Yeah. So yes.
So you agree.
Massive concern.
Yeah. Copyright infringement and creative exploitation.
Yeah, 100%. And that's like the other, I think, interesting angle why people have legitimate, totally legitimate anger at some of these companies is like, it feels like they just moved so fast and from my understanding, like stole a lot of data, scraped the web in ways that was illegal, if not like completely unethical, and then now are using that to make money themselves. And it feels like society, because this technology is moving so fast, has been slow to respond and slow to say like, hey, hold up. Your whole business model is illegal because you just stole all this data you're not supposed to steal. Like, you have to compensate these companies. So yeah, that's a major concern. I'm not sure what the solution is outside of like, if it's illegal, it needs to be like brought into court and decided in a way that puts guardrails on it, and we have like, you know, regulatory frameworks that protect people. So yeah, totally, like, don't steal shit. I agree with that.
Yeah, and I think that the idea that like, well, yeah, these companies have allegedly, but definitely have like scraped the internet.
100%.
And like, it happened. It's done.
Yeah.
Like, they've been trained.
Yeah.
You know, like it's already been used. So it's not like we can accept for maybe future iterations or new models. We can't be like, hey, don't do that. It's like, well, sorry, done.
Yeah.
You know? And so I think that there's definitely some like, that seems like a broader like policy thing that we can fix.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that, like, again, this is right. I just think this is a general trend of technology through time. I'm thinking specifically about Uber. When, like, Uber first launched, like, a lot of the stuff they were doing was illegal. Or, like
gray, what they call it, like gray something.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I wouldn't follow Travis Kyle necessarily, like, the moral compass of, like, I'm only going to do things that are legal. But I think when we step back, like, a lot of what they were going up against was certain regulations or certain laws that cities had that protected certain industries, like the taxi cab industry as one. Obviously, Uber is massively disruptive to that industry. And so you're going to maybe have to break some rules, and I'm not saying this is right, in order to see the technology you want to see in the world happen. And I think if you ask the average person, like myself, yourself right now, should Uber exist? Like, is Uber like net helpful? My guess is most people say yes. Again, I'm not saying yes or no to this question, but I just think this is a general trend where like new technology skirts the line, pushes the boundaries, and then society and law and regulation are slow to respond, and that causes a lot of frustration from a lot of people, rightfully so.
Yeah, I agree. Last one.
Okay.
Again, on the speed run, it's embarrassing to use AI around other people. Answer that one, Kyle.
I don't know. No?
I'm embarrassed. I literally do not. The times that I just told you about, the good faith times, I was at home.
Yeah.
I was not out here.
Locked doors, lights off.
Yeah, well, like people walking past, they want to see me talking to my little internet friend? Like,
yeah.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah, it's pretty cringe. I'll give you that.
Like, well, I'm talking to the bot in my computer.
Yeah.
So that is a hurdle.
Yeah.
That I have not yet gotten over.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that is the thing. It's just like the actual interface of it is like, oh, you're talking to your little internet buddy?
Yeah.
What did Claude tell you?
Yeah, like, oh, you made a little friend. You made up a little friend and now you're talking to them and you're like using it for like emotional connection or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that is another, I think, major fear is this emotional connection piece.
Yeah.
And like, depending upon the level of your maturity, the state of your like mental well-being, your age, like there's definitely some unsavory things that can come out of this technology, the same way that there's unsavory things that can probably come out of any technology. And we should we should take them seriously, and we should think about, as a society, how do we make sure to limit the downsides of this? And I think that is what's hard about this is AI moves so fast, and it seems like society moves super slow. Government is not known for being fast, and it is intentionally that way. It needs to be deliberative and democratic and like come up with solutions that are, you know, collaborative and most people kind of are on board with. But then there's this disconnect where the technology gets ahead of what government can or should do around it.
And this has happened since the beginning of time. Right?
Yeah.
Like I was out here at 12 on chat roulette. Like,
oh my God.
You know what I mean? Like we need to regulate ASAP. If it's anything like what my childhood was like.
Yeah, I hope that's banned. I have not thought about chat roulette in quite some time. Wow.
Yeah, sorry to bring that up.
Yeah, that's wild. Okay, anything else from your end?
I think ultimately, look, I'm trying to like make a good faith effort. I'm trying to like understand why people could use it. And I think there are some use cases. I think there are some very valid concerns. I am curious what you think about AI.
Yeah.
Do you love it? Do you hate it? Are there use cases that we haven't talked about? Are there concerns that we haven't talked about? Send us an email at per your last email. What the hell?
Don't send that. Per my last email.
The AI that I've been using has already atrophied my brain.
Yeah, this is why you don't use AI, folks. It will make you dumber. Per my last email at morningbrew.com. We'd love to hear from you. Yes. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? How are you using AI? Is AI cringe? You tell us. Should we roll the credits?
Do it.
Our producer is Michaela Heck.
Our technical director is Uchenna Ogu.
Jordan Schwartz is our VP of Finance.
And our president is Devin Emery.
This show is a production of Morning Brew.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Peace, y'all.